Hey guys, what's up? It's Kyle Dunn from Hyperdrive. So I wanted to record this while it was fresh in my mind. I just had a really cool experience. I got to go speak at my college alma mater, Cal State Fullerton, go Titans, and I got to talk to a marketing class of probably about 100 to 120 people. It was pretty cool. They were mostly third year students, so they had all declared a concentration, right? So they were all business majors and they had concentrations in marketing, finance, accounting, entrepreneurship, HR, information systems. So it was great. And I talked to them and gave them a little bit of background on my career and how I, when I graduated from Fullerton, how I worked at NeoGenomics and transitioned from NeoGenomics to work at M2Gen and then started my own company. And there would be parts within the conversation where I would pause and see if people had questions. And one of the best questions I got, which I think is one of the hardest things, it was about building a team. And I think the question specifically was like, can you tell me about how it was to build your team? And I think he even asked, like, was it hard? And I was like, it's so hard. Building a team in business is, for anything actually, is I think one of the hardest things you'll do as a leader. And I said, hey, we can go two ways with this. I'll show you. I'm going to tell you about my experience in building a team, and then we can talk about change management. I think the change management conversation is a whole other topic. But like, if you're building a team, maybe from the ground up or adding to it, how do you do it? And I loaded up this screen from our website, which is our core values. And I think I learned a ton about this from my time at Neo, working with, we had a great CEO, Doug Van Ort, and we had great leadership. Rob Shovlin, George Cardoza, Jennifer Ballier, Gina Waller, Bill Bonello, and the team that was there was always big about talking about core values, but they didn't just talk about them, they lived them. I'd say my experience working at Neo helped me realize that values are not just fluffy things that you put on the wall. They actually mean something. And our values at Hyperdrive are what we need to find the people that make great members of our team here. I think your values reflect the type of culture and people you're building and attracting to your company. So here's our core values. This came from hiring a lot of people that weren't good fits for us. And we started to figure out, well, what makes the great people that we have here, right? Like, you hear Jack Welch, I think, was pretty famous in terms of, as a manager, where you spend your time, like, you focus on the strengths, you don't focus on the weaknesses, like, and you pour into the strengths. So like, these were the strengths that our top performers have had. For us, problem solving, like, so important, because we're a startup and we're a new company and things aren't like perfectly laid out for you. So we look for people that are really good at solving problems, and they figure out how to take a complex problem and break it down, whether it's like making a UI easier on Voyager, or figuring out how to add new components to our data model for Nexus on our RWD products. Like, problem solvers are huge. But then, like, you can have really brilliant problem solvers, but if they're not resourceful and they can't figure out how to do those things with limited amount of resources, that's been a problem for us. So we also look for people that are very resourceful. So can you move quickly on things with what you have today and get a little bit of direction, and they can figure out the rest because they'll Google it or ChatGPT it, or they'll phone a friend and they just kind of dive in. Resourcefulness is huge. The next one, I know this probably looks very fluffy, but kindness. And I think actually kindness, it's not the fluffiness. It's like, in business and conversations, that means having conversations with empathy and honesty. Like, having crucial conversations with people on your team is important, because if you don't do those things, and things fester and they get worse, and that's not kind to anybody, because then things get heated, there's friction, and people leave, relationships are broken. So like, kindness is about, obviously, everyone gets treated with dignity, respect, kindness, compassion. But my whole point on the kindness thing, it's about communicating with empathy and honesty and doing that directly and quickly. And the last one you'll see on the screen is always improving. So we look for people that are big into personal and professional development. So I always love to ask on an interview, what's the last nonfiction book you've read? When's the last time you paid to go to a course or a seminar? Is there any kind of particular event you did recently to push yourself, either physically or academically? And if people don't do these things, what's so interesting, like all these are great individually, but as the whole, like when we find people that exhibit all these characteristics, dude, they're just rock stars. So that's what I wanted to share, I guess. I wanted to share that the great question that I got from the student at Cal State Fullerton, again, go Titans, was about the hardest part, building a team. And what I realized, again, kind of in summary, was that making sure you have core values is huge, because they got to have those soft skills, and then making sure they're on the right seat on the bus. And that's, I think that's a concept or phrase from the book from Jim Collins, Good to Great. You want to get the right people on the bus. So your core values get the right people on the bus. And then getting them on the right seat takes time, and also maturity, I think, in the business. Because in the early days, like you may have someone in a role doing customer service just because it's what you needed, but maybe they're like way better at actually generating sales, and you want them in a full outbound sales motion versus responding to inbound customer inquiries. That would be the right seat on the bus. But again, it's all about the culture first and making sure you've got the right people on the bus. So anyways, super thoughtful question. I wanted to share this. We're starting to document a lot more stuff here at Hyperdrive as we're building our company. So if you exhibit any of these core values and you're interested in working with a super scrappy company that is at the intersection of go-to-market strategy, real-world data, and just providing a ton of value for customers in the healthcare space, specifically in the diagnostics and clinical laboratory world, we would love to have you come and work with us. So thanks so much. See ya.